Alessia Jones arrived at Randor Resort Island with a broad, beaming smile. She felt she was living her dream, as being on a vacation on a remote island had always been on her bucket list. Now, she'd be able to tick that particular item off the list and focus on making the most of the experience. She was so engrossed with taking in her surroundings that she didn't hear the hotel attendant who was addressing her until he gave her a tap on the shoulder. "Excuse me, miss?" "Huh?" Alessia snapped back to reality, frightened. "Yeah?" "Welcome to Randor Resort Island, the best place to be. It is our delight to be at your service. Please, right this way. Let's check you in." The hotel attendant droned on as he ushered her to the reception hall on the first floor. It looked so magical and beautiful. Alessia immediately started imagining her wedding reception taking place right there at the reception hall. She eventually snapped out of her daydream when the attendant handed her the keys to her room that he had led her to, and immediately left. Alessia moved to the sliding glass door, which led to an open balcony. She stood there inhaling and exhaling the fresh island breeze. Just then, she thought she heard a sound from inside the room. As she turned to investigate, unbeknownst to her, a shadow walked past behind her. The sound probably came from the next room, she reasoned, and shrugged the thought off her mind. She then sat on the bed and dialed her best friend's number. Alessia knew her employer had made the arrangements for her trip, but the extent and expense they must have gone to. It showed how appreciated she was as a member of staff, and she was awed by the gesture. Although she was missing her best friend and wished the trip had been for two, she honestly thought she could use some me time to regain lost energy. "I would love to take a stroll around to see how big this place is," Alessia said, rolling comfortably on the bed while chatting with Emily. So far, her bestie was happy for her.
"Hey, miss, don't you think you should unpack first?"
Emily scolded. Alessia made a face and replied, "Seriously, if you were here, you'd be the one unpacking, while I check this place out."
"Yeah, right, but I'm not there, so do it yourself. Hey, bitch, just have fun,"
Emily said naughtily while laughing. "You're an ass, girl. Get off my phone," Alessia said, and threw her phone on the bed as she continued enjoying the luxury of the room. Later, she got up to explore the other parts of the room, which included a spacious bathroom. Alessia was a lover of music, so she played a track on her phone, undressed, and stepped into the bathroom. When she was done having a long bath, she was surprised the track had stopped halfway into her soak. She shrugged and thought her phone was developing some fault, but wasn't too bothered by it. Nothing a software update couldn't solve. She had been duly informed of the dinner party that would take place that night to welcome guests and patrons, and she was really excited. She had already decided that she would wear her blue sequin dress with some black strapless sandals. She walked out of the reception into the resort and did a little twirl in the sun. She was particularly glad that she had remembered to bring her sunscreen, so she wouldn't have to worry about getting sunburned. While she busied herself with getting ready for dinner, her phone rang loudly, interrupting the song that she had been playing on repeat. It was Emily, requesting a video call with her. She swiped on the accept icon and waited for it to connect. "Hey girl, how's it going?" "Where are you?" Emily asked, looking around her room in an expression she could not decipher. "In my room, silly. What's wrong? You seem off."
"So I was gonna book a room for myself to join you at the resort, and while I was checking the place out online, I stumbled across an article."
Emily started, breathing heavily. "What happened? What was the article about?"
2 years ago, over 10 people mysteriously lost their lives at the resort, and their bodies were never found. Experts say that it was like there was nobody on the island. Before that, there had been a distress call from the resort. Apparently, there was some sort of squabble going on, but they weren't exactly sure what.
"Why the hell are you telling me this?"
It's been exactly 2 years since the incident, and I don't want to seem like the bearer of bad news, but There's been a wide range of speculations that those who went to the resort last year didn't come back. And I checked the flight records going to the resort. You're the only one that booked a flight to the Maldives this year.
Yeah, that's not possible. There's a lot of people here. And there's going to be a dinner party tonight at the resort. So, what are you trying to say?
Who's that?
Her friend asked out of the blue, pointing at something behind her. What?
There's someone behind you.
Emily said, now sounding scared. There's no one behind me. Would you just stop that already?
I know what I'm seeing. Turn around.
Alyssa turned around abruptly, but saw that there was no one around. I told you there was no one here.
I know what I saw, Alyssa. This isn't a joke.
Why don't you get some rest? We'll talk in the morning. She hung up. She rolled her eyes at her friend's paranoia and continued getting ready for the party. When she arrived at the venue of the event, she was surprised to see that all the guests had stoic expressions on their faces. It was almost as if they couldn't care less about the party. The atmosphere was gloomy, sadder than her grandmother had been while her grandfather passed away. She didn't see many familiar faces, but was able to recognize one. Mr. Myers? She called out and happily walked over to him. He had been her client at the firm for almost 3 years until he had suddenly stopped coming to the office, but she was glad to see him. But when she reached him, he stared at her with no expression on his face, which came as a shock to her. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you must have recognized me. I work at the law firm where you came to draw up contracts and... Welcome to the Randor Resort Island, the best place to be. It is our delight to be at your service. You won't want to leave once you're here. What? She stared at him in confusion. It wasn't long before all the guests at the hotel began saying the same thing, all of them chiming in together like some sickening chant. She looked around frantically, trying to understand what was happening, but couldn't make sense of it. Just as she was about to dart out of the hall, the doors slammed shut, trapping her with the others. Black smoke began pouring in from the air vents, making her vision blurry, and it wasn't long before she succumbed to the darkness and drifted off.
Alyssa, you need to get out of there right now. I just called the hotel and no one is answering. A friend of mine just confirmed that the resort hasn't been in business for years now. Alyssa? Alyssa! Oh, for heaven's sake, say something!
Subscribe today or beware.